How much of a liability is buying your home too early? Hi, I'm Sam Powell.
And I'm Joe Kraus, and we are the hosts of the Property Pals Australia podcast. And in this episode, we're talking about what is rent vesting and the benefits of it to build your property portfolio and wealth.
Yeah, we also discuss the benefits of buying a home and the opportunity cost involved and when it's the right time for you to make that decision.
Yeah, we also share some strategies on how you can get closer to buying your home whilst investing at the same time.
Yeah, and finally, look, we share some interesting strategies and examples of the cost difference with the figures of rent vesting and buying a home based on $1 million budget, which is really quite interesting to sort of break down those figures. But before we do get stuck into this episode, I wanted to tell you that this is not the only way that we help people free by this podcast. We have a really great free resource on our website, which is www.propertypals.au/resources, and it's all about how to maximize your borrowing capacity. And we've shared that for free, so jump on there, check it out, and it's a really key way to help you maximize your ROI.
Welcome to Property Pals, the podcast where we share everything around how to build a property portfolio, from researching areas, financing, structuring, buying, selling, and reinvesting to live a life of financial independence. As a disclaimer, any information shared by myself, Jared, Sam, and the Property Pals team is strictly general and should not be taken as constituting professional advice. You should consider seeking independent legal, financial, and taxation advice from a qualified professional. Yes, so to rent vest or to not rent vest?
Yes, to buy a principal place residence first or
Yeah.
invest in a property and be a rent investor.
So people say PPR. I've heard you say PPOR.
Same.
Same.
It's like, what's in Bali? Same but different.
Yeah.
No, same thing. PPR, PPOR, who cares?
Principal place of residency. So it's a big question if you are coming to the field of
Starting your journey.
Yeah, being able to buy your first property, like having the borrowing capacity to go, like, yeah, I can do that. And my sister, she is like considering buying a home, and she's very close to buying a home, and then changed it, and it's like, oh, do I buy investment property? And I had a really good discussion with her about it, and broke down, the decisions of investing in a home and the decisions of investing in a property and what benefits and pros and cons you get with each. Yes, there is definitely financial benefits investing in a home as well as emotional benefits, but I guess we'll talk about the differences. Before we jumped in onto this pod, Powley, you went and got some stats and some data, and yeah, I love it. Let's bring up some of the data and the stats.
Yeah, so the reason why was just to paint a bit of a clearer picture. So there's a common question that people come to me and go, well, should I buy my principal place residence now? I finally, the journey of the buyer, they start out, becoming they start working, whatever that is, and then they start saving money, right? And then we've obviously coached people on how to save money and then using that money to then go into a property. Once you've accumulated that money, the common question is, well, do I buy a house to live in or do I buy an investment property? And so for different people, they may not be able to afford the location they want to live in. So
yes.
that's a pretty clear indication of, well, you've got this money. If you don't buy, say you've got $100,000, that's enough money to invest into a property. That might not be enough as a deposit if you're living in a location that requires $200,000 as an initial deposit from the bank's perspective. And in order for you to save up that additional $100,000, it might take you 4 years. $25,000 a year savings. That's pretty standard. So,
is it?
Well, not for everyone. Everyone's different. Some people might be like, oh, well, that's nothing. And some people might be like, Damn, I can't.
That's good. Yeah.
Apparently, this is some stats thrown out there where they say 80% of statistics are wrong, but there's like a large percentage of people live on say like savings of $100 a week.
Oh mate, there's a large percentage of people that live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah,
Like if you speak to our mate, some of our mates on the site, job sites, it's like literally like, yes, how good's Thursday? I'm going to get paid. Like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's
If
not
that's you, then yeah, maybe it's worth starting to rentvest, save, and then rentvest. Or go back and listen to our pod on how to save for your first deposit, because there's some seriously good nuggets in there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So coming round to which is best is, for you to sit out of the market and wait for 4 years, that to save that extra $100,000, depending on the market and where it's at, right? But more often than not, you're going to be, if you have a budget of, to get into that location is $1 million as a round number. In 4 years' time, that might be worth $1.2 million. So then your deposit size is going to be larger. So you're constantly chasing that mythical dragon in that way. And people do get stuck in analysis paralysis, and they don't make that decision. 10 years down the track, you still haven't made that decision to buy a property. So the point being is, well, if you've got that initial cash, what do you do with it? And if you want to go down the principal place of residence pathway, then I'd be looking into the data to see what the growth prospects are for that location as a starting point, and then looking at the opportunity cost of where else you could buy. But just to in general, the cash flow requirements for your principal place of residence are high, and you're getting no income out of it. So once you go down your principal place of residence pathway, you sign up. You've got that 30-year loan term. You've got to make those repayments, but you've got no additional cash flow coming through, so it hinders your borrowing capacity for a number of years. So you won't be able to invest in property for a number of years. Whereas if you go down the rent vesting path, because you've got that income paying for that debt, you can accumulate more properties, which is getting you to that target of a passive income, because you retire on income. You don't
retire on your home.
No, because obviously if you're doing the rent vesting, you're renting, and that's costing you money as well. But these are the stats that I put around it, which is on a broad base. If you've got $1 million house, say you want to buy $1 million house, you've got $200K as a deposit, you need $800,000. In today's rates, $800,000 in a principal and interest loan is costing you $1,135 a week to hold.
Okay, so just say 1,100.
Yeah, 1,100 round figures. On an interest only, it's costing you round figures $1,000.
Okay,
so you're paying about extra $100 down on your principal at the start, which is whatever, but still 1,000 to 1,100 in repayments to have your principal place of residence. For that $1 million asset, you're probably looking at, in different locations, obviously, but you're probably looking at renting that for around $800 a week. Yeah, $800 to $900.
Yeah.
So that's that additional cash flow that you can actually, and more often than not, sorry.
And I want to add to that, because there's more expenses that you need to have. It's not just your repayments, right? It's your rates. So for about $1 million property, we were looking at one the other day, the rates, being at $3 to $4 grand a quarter.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just like, in a location that's close to us, and then you've got insurance, property insurance as well.
Well, you'll have property insurance from an investment as well.
Yeah, and then you also got maintenance of the property as well, which as a rent investor you're not paying for. So I just want to add in those sort of expenses as well,
you got additional expenses.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. Landlord insurance, you don't need that, but you still have insurance over the property that you own.
But would it be safe to say that you could put from that $1,100 P&I repayments, you could add another $200 a week onto that for rates and for insurance? Yeah, and then also and then maintenance too, right?
Yep.
Which it might actually end up being more. It might end up being more than $1,300 in repayments. But just say $200 a week is probably not that much. Like if your rates are around $3 to $4 grand a quarter, it's
on the golf,
getting up there.
3, 4. I'd be budgeting like $1,000 for rates, but
A quarter, so $4
Yeah.
grand a year.
Yeah.
And then you've got in property insurance, so let's just say it's $5 grand a year, right? So yeah, $200 roughly. Yeah, so
$5 grand's a lot unless you're in Townsville. That's where I hit you.
so let's just say your repayments are $1,300 now per week versus $800.
Yes.
There's a big difference, right?
Yep.
That's a $500 per week difference.
Yeah,
which is at a savings rate, is that 25 grand a year? I think it is, right?
And then and that's the calculation you got to do in your head. And the more desirable locations in around Australia, the cheaper it is to rent to own. So as an example, I'm buying properties in Sydney at the moment. You're looking at $3 million. They're renting for around $1,500 a week.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to amplify that out, like I'm doing $1 million as an example. If you're buying a $3 million property, you're looking at say
3 times that,
$3,000 a week just to hold it, and then you're renting it for $1,500 a week. It's like your opportunity cost is massive. And that's when that's why everyone is different, depends on their location. But having those initial chats on the way in can really change your life, because 70% of people that buy their first home, that's not their forever home. So that's a really key point to hit home on, is that the house that you buy today as your principal place resident is not going to be your forever home. You grow, you change, you might even change locations, So thinking and asking those questions up front is the strategy side of things, where you're like, well, where do you plan to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? If you're constantly changing, then maybe buying and pushing your financial capacity to limits for that principal place of residence, for the perceived value of, well, I have security. It's just that question you got to ask yourself.
Even like a good example is my brother, right? He bought a really good house, really good home, redeveloped it, built his dream home, right? They're both like, yeah, absolutely love it. Like, it's our dream home. At the same time, they're like, well, we might move locations, right? But they've got their dream home. Like, they can go and build that somewhere else. So they're changing locations, which changes things as well. And that's in under a 10-year period too. So
most people do.
Even if you do get to that place where, like, my brother has his dream home in an awesome location, like things change.
Yeah, and also there's some joys in you can go and try new locations as a renter. You can just pack up, you pay a few $1,000 in moving fees, go live somewhere else. You could have a different lifestyle. You could choose to go inland and have that tree sort of experience, or you could
love it.
What's so funny about that one?
Well, live in a tree house, like.
Oh no, I'm talking about
That's where my mind went. That's why I laughed.
Oh, tree house.
You mean like as in like enjoy a property with trees?
No, you look out. It's peaceful, man.
Yeah, it is.
Like you sit there and look at the mountain ranges, and you got a bit of. You wake up, you don't smell the city vibes,
carbon,
car fumes, and all that. But then there's a beauty in waking up and just smelling the ocean. Before we continue today's pod, I want to ask you a few questions. What is your property investment goal? What type of properties do you want to own? How many? What size valuation property portfolio do you want to own? And how much net income do you want to be earning? Essentially, what's your magic number in passive income that you want to be earning? And do you know how to get there? And if you do you know how to get there in the least time possible with the least amount of risk? Sam and I have been helping people invest in property and build property portfolios for years. People who are now replacing their income through property, and we want to help you do the same. Right now, for a limited time, we are offering free property coaching to our listeners. We won't be able to do this forever, of course, so head to propertypals.au/coaching. That's propertypals.au/coaching to see how we can help you achieve your investment property goals. Link will be in the description too. Like, it's coming down to us sharing with you, there is opportunity costs in buying a home first over buying an investment property, right? Becoming a rentvestor. Typically, a rentvestor is the reason they're doing it is
for financial reasons, and typically they're gonna, in the long run, starting that sort of route, that sort of strategy financially, it helps them better in the long run, right? But a big but is like, well, hang on a second, there's some emotions that come into this too, right, Sam?
Yeah, and there's also, like, going back to what in other podcasts, is the financial, you can store your wealth in your principal place of residence and don't have any capital gains from that perspective. So there's, it depends on what, and obviously the security too. So when you're renting, don't get me wrong, most leases are a 12-month lease in Australia, but you can negotiate 3-year leases. Like, landlords don't want tenants to be moving every 12 months because it costs me money. Like, it's vacancy periods, there's reletting fees. Like, I don't want the tenant to leave. I'd rather sign them up. The only reason why I don't is that I know that the rental growth market is just going bananas at the moment. So if I sign up to a 3-year lease today, I'm going to be under renting it, for year 2 and 3.
Well, everybody wins in that. If you can work out what you as a property owner would pay in reletting fees twice over a 3-year period, and then take that off the rent for a 3-year thing, you're both winning. Like, you can meet in the middle there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, that's to each their own, and what their level of, like, their big rocks in the jar. People like moving into their home and renovating it and making it theirs. It's like that nesting kind of situation. So I fully understand that, and that's why it comes down to individual preferences and circumstances. However, from a financial capacity point of view, it also depends on your situation. What else are you doing to increase your revenue stream outside of your principal place of residence? If you've got a business and it's generating a lot of money, then at least you've got an alternative income stream. But if you're just a PAYG person sitting there, you've got that money. There's a lot of opportunity cost being missed in the Australian property market by people just waiting, those additional 10 years to buy that. I'm a homeowner when, as I said, there's growth pockets out there that are growing really strongly from a capital growth perspective, that you can invest in those locations, even sell down within that 4-year period, and then use that equity to then go and buy your dream home.
Yeah. It's a really good point, because people may be sitting there with, like, all right, I've got 50 grand cash, and they might be like, well, buy a jet ski. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Buy a jet ski, buy a boat, just go buy some liabilities. It's really good for your financial future. No, but like, say they got 50 grand cash and like, well, I'm saving up to buy my dream home. Well, okay, you can do that. And at the same time, you can invest as well, right? Like, say they got 50 grand, they could go and buy a 300K property, right? And that's enough for a deposit for a 300K property and entry costs and all that sort of stuff. You can buy a 300K property that might grow at a growth rate of, what have we got, 5%. So that's 15 grand a year it might grow at. You're putting your money to work where you're getting, 5% growth in a 300K property. You're getting 15 grand compounding roughly a year. Over 4 years' time, you've got an extra 60 grand, right? Very rough figures and rough numbers. But over 4 years, you're putting your money to work, that 50 grand that can make you 60 whilst you continue to save. And then after that 4 years, you can take out your 50 that you already have in there, and then maybe your 60 in growth. And then you've got, 110 plus whatever you save from your PAYG. You're getting closer to buying your dream home by putting that money to work for you, right? So you're doing the rent vesting thing whilst you're saving for your dream home at the same time.
Yeah, and then, like, an example is if you buy a $500,000 property, it goes up 100 grand in a 12-month period, which is we've seen.
We talked about in the last pod. If you haven't listened to the last pod, there was one location that went nuts. Like,
was it 900 grand in 12 months?
Yeah. Well, what was the percentage of growth in? It was almost double, right? So it doubled.
1.4 million to 2.38 in 12 months.
Yeah. So there's opportunity cost of youth. There's a massive opportunity cost of people sitting there saving for their dream home if they have a little bit of cash and they're not doing anything with it.
Yeah, and even just thinking through what is your dream home now to
what could be in 4 years? It might change.
I'm the classic example. My dream home was not what my dream home is today. 5 years ago.
Lots changed for you in 5 years.
Yeah, my next home is I want to have a detached studio for my nanny to go in there.
Yeah. An
au pair. Oh, that's a cool little vibe. But after a few years, once the kids grow up, we've talked about this in a previous episode, where there's the life cycle journey of a lot of people, and it goes from generally a small residence to a medium to a large residence, back to a smaller residence in later years in your life.
Really good timeline. Really good thing to think about.
Thinking through these things is really key, and a lot of it is now in the data, and we've got so much more access to data. Yes, it costs a lot of money, but that's obviously talking to the right people who know, where to put that money to work for you is going to reduce that cost, because a lot of people, they don't know what the opportunity is out there, and there's a lot of fear around it. And it's because I know this, because this is what I thought when I was, had saved up my $100,000. I was stoked, and then it was analysis paralysis. Like, do I rent this? Do I buy an owner occupier? Like, what confidence do I have? And then throughout my journey, I've now come to the realization that if you get it right, rentvesting is a really beneficial strategy to your goals in life, which is generally passive income, retirement, freedom, time.
Also took me ages of having cash in the bank account to realize, like, that's not doing me any good. Like, it's really burning a hole in my pocket is what most people say. It's like, damn, like, I remember like one time I had like a decent chunk of cash in my bank account, and I was like, what, like, I didn't know that I didn't know where to invest it. Like, I had invested in so many, like, I invested in businesses, but like, I can't just continue doing that because I've got risk in that market, right? I need to diversify. I didn't know where to go, and didn't know the opportunity costs of property. Now I'm a raving fan.
Well, that's why you want to do this podcast.
Yeah.
But it's not, people listen to this, they're here for property and business. So, we're massive advocates of Jared's infinite loop, which is doing both. It's just that the risk component with property is a lot lower than business.
Absolutely.
But then, your cash flow returns out of businesses is a lot higher than property. But if you get it right, it's a really simple and beneficial strategy to help people.
Yeah. So we talked about, like, if you're in a position like where you're at, like, maybe it's not the best for you to go away and buy a home, and what you could do instead. But what if, like, it's different? Like, what if somebody does have 200K, and or say somebody's got, like, I can access 300,000 and they can buy their dream home with 300,000. But that's everything that they've just say maybe they've pulled or sold a property or sold some assets or pulled equity out of certain things, and they're like, I've got 300,000, and they go away and buy their dream home. When is that worth it for them to do so?
Well, based on personal preference.
It's all personal preference, right?
Yeah, and you can take that. Like, for me, it'd be the data and the opportunity that I could see. Like, for me, I'm
sure Kayla would have some say in the emotions as well.
That's what I mean, man. Like, it's you as a team, or like, if it's just you, then it's like, well, what lights you up? What's your big rock?
Yeah.
Like, is it, you might really love what you're doing, and you're not driven to, I want to retire, I want that passive income,
You just would actually feel on a physical level happier in a home because you own it, or part of it.
Yeah.
At least.
And there's a lot of sort of getting into the hamster wheel of life, whereas a lot of people always push you, buy a principal place of residence because it's secure, and you can, you've got somewhere to live if in the event of the world falls over, But there's also times where I get it. Of late, you've seen people that have been renting and then their house gets sold because the owner obviously wants to cash in, and then they've got to go into the rental pool, and they're competing with a whole bunch of people in like trying to get a home, and it's stressful because you generally get a 2-month leeway into trying to find a rental. And then if you don't find that rental that fits your budget, it's quite stressful.
Absolutely. And not to be too heavy on the rentvestor side here, my sister did mention this to me the other day. She's like, if I don't go buy my home that I want, right, and they're having a family, and I go and buy an investment property and it's a house, that cancels out the whole, like, if the world turns to shit, like, I need security, because she can have a house that she just goes, she's investing in or renting out. She can just go, yep, cool, this is my home, I need it. You know, like if she's renting somewhere and the world turns to crap. So like as a rent investor, you still can have that security of somewhere to have a roof over your head if you need to as well. So that's sort of, not to be too heavy again on that side, but does sort of cancel that out as well. But I do get the feeling of like, this is my home, like owning a home in a location that you like, and like, I want to change some walls, I want to do some renovations, or I want to hang something up over here, and you can do that.
You can do that in the rental too. Tenants like, you want them to make it a home.
Yeah.
And it's a conversation too with your landlord is, when you're going into your lease, what are your plans with this property for the next 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
You can even negotiate with the landlord and say, look, I'll sign a 3-year lease. I'll sign a 5-year lease.
Yeah.
You can even do a 5-year lease on a rental with a CPI rental increase.
Uh-huh.
Everything's a negotiation at the end of the day, but most people don't even know that you can do that.
I know that in Europe, what they do is they renovate the bathrooms and kitchens in their, like, if they struggle to buy, their PPOR, and what they do is they want a nice kitchen and a nice bathroom. So what they do is they will renovate it, and then when their lease will end, they will go and charge the person who is the new tenant a certain amount of money for the renovation they've done, and that cost just keeps getting pushed backwards, back to the new tenant, not the owner.
That's cool.
It's an interesting thing that I heard from somebody that did that with their kitchen in Europe. I just thought, wow, that's a possibility as well, for sure.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, that's where my mind goes to. Well, if you're a tenant, you can say to the owner, if they want to increase the rent, say, well, how about we paint it and we keep the rent the same, or we replace the carpets and keep the rent the same. And provide the landlord the invoice so they can claim it on tax. Love that. But that keeps your cash flow low and you live in a nicer place.
It's a win for everyone.
Yeah, so multiple different strategies, but I guess we're sort of running around like everyone is different. The answer to this overarching episode question is to each their own.
Yeah,
from my point of view.
Yeah.
Depends on what you value more, in your personal life and what opportunities you have that are in front of you to help you make that decision. But if you are chasing that passive income and I guess that wealth journey, just know that going into your principal place of residence first is going to set you back from hitting those goals later in life. But life's a journey too.
Yeah, I mean, and also people wanting to get into their principal place of residence as fast as possible. I understand you're probably in a better position that you may consciously know that you're in, and you may be able to go away and take 40 grand or 50 grand. You've got it, if you're in a unique position to have that, to help you speed up your journey to get to your principal place of residence as well.
Yeah, you can also de-risk it too by, if you're really worried about the future, then buy a property that's within a few hours drive of your location. Once again, looking at the data sets, make sure that there's growth opportunities there. But if everything goes to your landlord sells your property out, you've got a 12-month lease on your investment property. It's like, well, if everything goes down, I know it's not the best morally thing to do, but you've got to choose you over other people, and you just have to rent somewhere or Airbnb somewhere for a few months until your investment property lease expires, and then you move in there. There's ways to de-risk everything, and you just got to ask the right questions to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you guys have any questions, or you feel like, oh, maybe I can invest and get yourself closer to buying more properties for your portfolio as an investment and be a rent investor, or maybe you can buy a smaller property just to get you closer to your buying your first home, reach out to us, propertypals.au. We're here to chat. We're here to help you. We do want you to set yourself up financially. Like, we love talking about this. If you didn't realize, we started a whole podcast on it. And we love helping people that, the significance we get from it, and, just the fulfillment we get from it is huge. So yeah, reach out.
Yeah, well, we just had a question to start this episode, which is, do you rent vest or do you own? And I mean, we've rambled for half an hour or something now, but you don't know what you don't know, as I always say, and just ask the right questions, and yeah, we're here to help. So any questions, if you do have them, please write a comment or send us an email, hello@propertypals.au. And if you're up for it, come on the pod. We'd love to just riff it, have a chat, and help people similar to yourself.
We could get people on the pod and sort of hash out some investment strategy for them as well, which would probably be pretty valuable.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, for people to like think about, like us talking through different ways that somebody could rent vest to get to their property that they want to purchase, their home, or rent vest to just continue building a portfolio. So yeah, thanks guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Ciao for now.